The Honest Money podcast is powered by 10x Investments, a licensed financial services provider. Consult with your financial advisor and let's 10x your future together.
Welcome to Honest Money. I'm Warren Ingram.
Pieter Villiers.
So this is the second episode in our investment series on, we're calling them investment vehicles. So these are the different kinds of investments that you can find for your money. And today we're talking about tax-free savings accounts. We need to just start by saying it's the worst name for such a fantastic vehicle. It should be tax-free savings. That's it. Just tax-free savings. Because the moment you add the word account, everyone thinks about a fixed deposit account, a money market account, and they immediately think this is the place where you store your cash. And we were just kind of discussing off air about this to say, what a lousy thing to do. So to say the worst name for a fantastic investment vehicle that we both really love. And so maybe let's just get into some of the rules about it, Pieter.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I'll even take away the savings and call it an investment. So tax-free investment. I think that's important because the savings part also confuses people. So I'm going to take us back in history, not too far away. It was, I believe, 2015 when it was introduced. So last time we talked about in the previous episode of, only 6% of South Africans can retire comfortably. That's where the retirement funds come in and the retirement reform. Now with savings, the statistics are even worse. The average savings rate in South Africa is less than 1%. Last time I checked, like it's 0 point something. So the government was like, okay, we need to get people to invest for retirement, but also we need them to encourage them to save. So the best way to do that is to give them tax breaks. All right, cool. So that's where the tax-free savings comes in. And if you consume a lot of American content or UK content, it's similar to a Roth IRA in the US. So the rules are, I earn an income, I pay tax, and my after-tax money goes into the tax-free savings account. And now that grows tax-free. So don't pay any income tax, interest tax, capital gains tax, local dividend tax. And then one day when I want to take it out, I also don't pay tax. So that's now where the difference comes with the RA. RA, you put money, pre-tax money in, you get a tax deduction. At the end, you pay taxes. Tax-free, you pay taxes first, put after-tax money in, grows tax-free, and then you take tax money out. I think the reason why they call it a tax-free savings account was to encourage people to save more, which it's a good step. I just think it's not a leap. It's like a little small step. They should have done a little bit better. Now, to get a bit more into the nitty-gritty stuff, if you save money in a bank account or a money market, you earn interest. And for the first 23,800 Rand, you don't pay any interest tax. That's interest-free. So that's now the reasoning behind the tax-free savings account was to say, we're going to keep that rule, but now we're going to keep all the growth within the tax-free savings account tax-free. So that's great. Right. So that's a rule. So everything grows tax-free. The only thing that does not go tax-free in a tax-free savings account is foreign dividends. So I think that's just something I want to point out. If we say tax-free, it means local interest, local dividends, local capital gains, and it's still estate dutiable, so it doesn't fall outside of your estate. You still pay estate duty on that. But if you have like an offshore fund in the tax-free savings account and you earn offshore foreign dividends and foreign interest, you'll still pay tax within that environment because it's a South African product. Okay, so how much can you put into a tax-free? This is very important. With an RA, we said 27.5% of your income of 350,000 Rand, and you can over-contribute to an RA without penalties. Rules change with a tax-free. It's very important. You can only contribute 36,000 Rand per year into a tax-free and 500,000 Rand over your lifetime. What happens if you exceed this? SARS will clap you with a 40% penalty upfront. You'll get a nasty surprise when tax return comes and they say 40% tax penalty. And that applies to all tax-free savings accounts if you add them all together. So you can have 10 different tax-free savings accounts if you want to. You can open 10 if you really want to go through that admin hassle. But the 36,000 is the combination of everything that you've contributed. So you can't have 10 different tax-frees and add 36,000 to each. 36,000 in combination of everything. So make sure that if you have more than one, you always keep within that limit. And if you continue with that 36,000, maxing it out, you'll kind of hit the 500,000 Rand limit around 13 years, 167 months, something like that. Legislation may change in the future where they'll increase that. They have increased the contributions to a tax-free over time, and they might increase the lifetime limit as well. We don't know. But that's kind of how the structure around a tax-free would work.
And just importantly, there sometimes people think that it means that once it gets to 500,000 Rand in value, that's the maximum. It's not. So it's just what you're putting in. So over time, your tax-free could be a few million Rand. And just think about that. So you've got a few million Rand invested, growing mostly without any kind of tax, and money that you can draw on much later in life, tax-free. Yes. So it's a phenomenal investment. And I think those rules are so simple in a way that you can't have concerns about, my money's locked away, or, there's a contract that stops me or something like that. You if you've got the cash flow, you should be doing this. Like this, to me, not much in life is no-brainer, but this is right up there. This is pretty much a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's almost call it a free lunch. It's available to also Africans, even kids, babies. Get a baby from the day they're born, they can open it tax-free.
It's the most boring thing, but it's me. I can't help myself. When we have friends and family that have young children, I say to them, I'm not giving your child that's 1 year old a present, because what am I going to give the child? What I am going to do is, please open up a tax-free on behalf of your kid. I'll do the first contribution, because that, if we can do that every single year, maybe when they get a bit older, we'll give them a small present so they don't hate me until they realize the size of their tax-free. But I think it's such a nice gift to give. If you can't afford it as a parent, where you can't maximize your contribution, tell your friends and family and say, look, please don't do the gifts for us. Rather contribute to our children's tax-frees. It's close to a no-brainer. This is the thing you should go out of your way to maximize for yourself, 36,000 a year, and for your children. And this is where you rely on the community and your family to make sure that they contribute if you can't afford to do it.
It's an absolute, if you go and do the calculations on, even if you add 500 Rand a month to your child's tax-free when they are born, I don't have the exact numbers, but let's say you get to the point where you can max it out, and they age of 13 and they've got their 500,000 Rand limit, and they keep that thing growing until they reach 50, 55. That will be enough to retire, tax-free. They don't have to invest a cent the rest of their life if you invest it properly, and we're going to get to that in a second. So you can give them the ultimate gift in life with giving them a massive head start. Now, a caveat to that, they need to also be educated to use that money responsibly, because when they hit the age of 18, that money is theirs. They have legal rights, so they can go and cash out their tax-free and go party or buy an irresponsible car. So what I like about that is if you have kids and you want to set them up for success, first of all, put the oxygen mask on yourself. So don't max out their tax-free if you're not able to max out your own. So do that first. But let's say you've got excess money and you want to set them up for success. I like that, family gatherings, tell them, listen, instead of buying my kid a toy in a box, just give me the box, because they're probably going to play more with that.
I like the box.
And then what you would have put in the box, let's invest it in the tax-free. Now, if a kid is less than 4 years old, they're not going to understand much about money, but then start involving them in the process. So now let's say they're 7 or 8 or 10. I'll say, okay, well, listen, this is your pocket money every month, but now let's take 20% of this and let's all go invest it. And you open, you've got an account with the investment platform, you help them, they log in, you show them, okay, this is what you can invest in. And, this is how it's been growing over time, so that they become involved in the conversation around money and investing. And you can keep it very simple. You can buy one ETF that's well diversified. That's everything you need to do, so that when they eventually hit the age of 18, they will understand how to be responsible with that money and what that will mean for them over the long term, and keep it invested. Because you can really set them up for success. Don't do it to your own detriment, but also make sure that they will be able to use that responsibly over time, and make sure that they understand what that impact, compounding impact, would mean for them. Because it's almost like, it feels to me like
magic.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm going to Hogwarts. Basically, if I can max out my kids tax-free, they'll be able to retire. Wouldn't we all wish we had that? but I think it's still important to involve them because they should also not expect that they can live a life without being responsible with money because they get a nasty surprise. You also want to help them, but not help them too much that they don't, become responsible adults themselves.
And I think just there, I mean, I've had that question from a few parents saying, I don't want to maximize my child's contributions before they're 18 because I'm worried about them being irresponsible.
Yes.
And so, I mean, the first answer, the best answer is it's your job as a parent. It's not the school's job. It's your job to educate your child.
Yeah.
Just get them to listen to honest money. Make it part
there
of the compulsory money education. But secondly, let's just say the worst happens and your child, when your child is 17 and a half years old and you realize that they're, I don't know, they're an addict or something like that. Something's gone wrong. You are the parent. You have control over that money until they turn 18. I'm right.
Yes.
So that means you can do something. But it's radical, but you could literally liquidate that thing and put it into a trust for them or something like that. You could put it into a different vehicle. So don't. Unfortunately, it's an easy opt-out if you're a parent saying, no, I don't want to do this because I don't know what my kid's going to be like at age 18. Well, you've got enough time until your child's 18 to actually make that call, to do the homework in educating them. And if something goes wrong and it's bad and it's permanent, for example, where you are really worried, you can do something to help them and set them up in a different way.
Yes.
So we're not giving it out there. That's not a good reason not to maximize it.
Yes, and onto that. So a tax-free savings account, you can take the money out anytime. You're not locked in until age 55. It's fully accessible, but pretend that I didn't say that, because the power in tax-free savings account really comes to shine over at least a decade, that tax-free growth. In the beginning, you won't really see much of a difference, but if you compound that over time, it really becomes a powerful vehicle if you remain invested. So I would say I would always, in my mind, put a tax-free with a retirement annuity and pretend that I'm going to contribute and I'm not going to touch it until retirement, because that's going to give me a tax-free retirement from that fund, unless I now start taking money out. So the uses of a tax-free savings account, in my view, would be retirement provision. Now I know, and I don't know why, but I've seen these adverts online where, open a tax-free savings account to save for your wedding next year, to fund that holiday in 2 years' time, to buy a car. Please don't use a tax-free savings account for that. You can use anything else.
That's garbage. It's actually garbage. You just should never do that.
Yeah, I'm almost like these adverts should be illegal because it hurts people. If you go to the bank and you ask them to open a savings account, be very careful that they don't recommend a tax-free savings account. And this has happened to many people, because the problem is, if your intention or behind this is, I just want to keep money that I save every month in a pocket that I'm going to use, I'm going to transfer money between my check and my savings when I need it, please don't do this as a tax-free savings account, because we talked about the 36,000 limit per year and the 500,000 Rand limit per lifetime. That's contributions. If you take money out, you've already contributed that amount to that limit. So let's say you've contributed 36,000 Rand for the year. You take that money out and you put it back in, just like a simple switch. What's happening now is you've contributed 72,000 in Sasha's eyes, because you've added 36,000 Rand twice, 40% penalty on that difference. So please don't use a tax-free savings account as a transaction account. Worst thing, please don't use it as a short-term or medium-term savings account. Don't use it to save up for your house or your car. Education funds for kids, I would like to hear your opinion on that, because I know that's sometimes something that gets recommended.
I mean, again, so if it means you can fund your children at school, but you can't fund them at university, and this is the difference between them going to university or not, well, it's a no-brainer. Then you use the money for that, because it's your child's tax-free savings account, and you're investing it, which is I'm using that word intentionally. You're investing it in education for them, and what we do know is that if you can expand your child's education horizon, that their earning ability will go.
Yeah.
So I don't have it's not the ideal way. Like if you could find a way to leave them with that tax-free, into later into life, and fund their university, by all means, that's the right way. But to make this the education fund for tertiary education or late high school, and that sets your child up for life. That's I don't have any issue with that. I think that's a noble goal, and it's the right goal for the child. What you don't do is, cash in your child's tax-free saving when they're 17 and a half years old for your car, your own car. That's it's not criminal, but it should be criminal.
Yes. So maybe if the intention behind the investment is education, sure, you can use. I will not use the full amount, because I think there's also reason in educating them and to help them also invest in their own tax-free savings account that they can use later on in life. Because let's say you have maxed out the 500,000 for them and you cash it out at 18, they don't have a tax-free anymore, and that's a very powerful investment for them long term as well. So maybe you can balance it. You can take a portion of that, or you can use another investment like an endowment or discretionary fund that we'll cover next time for education purposes, and tax-free is just retirement. There are different schools of thoughts on that, but I think I agree. If it's a good purpose and you're going to set them ahead in life, then it could make sense. It depends on what you're looking for. So we're very intentional. It's called a tax-free savings account. I wish it was changed to tax-free investment. So why is that important? Because let's say you now open a tax-free savings account with the bank, and they say like, the interest rates are so high, you get a nice 7% or 8%, and it's predictable. And you think, okay, cool, it's growing every year, I'm happy. It's going to cost you millions, because especially if you're young. Reason being, if you invest in any fund, whether it's let's say normal taxable investment in cash in a savings account, you're going to earn interest, and you're going to in any case have that 23,800 Rand per year interest free. So you're already benefiting from that rule. So you're not really benefiting from putting into a tax-free savings account, because you're already saving that up to that amount. But the more so long-term effect of saving it instead of investing, if you get 6% at the bank and you could get 10% in the markets, that 4% difference may not sound too much in 1 year, but compound that over 40 years, it's millions, multitudes of millions. So again, be smart about how you invest it. Yes, the more returns you want, the higher risk you need to take. There are no constraints around tax-free savings account like retirement annuities. The Regulation 28 does not apply. So you can go 100% offshore equities if you can stomach that. Going to come with its ups and downs short term, so be prepared for that. But it's there are some limits. So the limits that are within a tax-free savings account is you can't invest in individual stocks. You can't put your full tax-free into Tesla. You can buy ETFs, and you can buy unit trusts. I believe you can put retail savings bonds in there, but individual stocks and is not able, and crypto also is not allowed in that yet. And the one thing that I like about tax-frees is they're trying to keep it simple. So performance fee funds is also not allowed in a tax-free.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? We've covered investment fees in a previous episode in depth, but performance fee says, my fee for this fund is, let's say the total investment charge is 1.5%. But now the fund manager says that if I outperform the market or the benchmark over a certain period, I'm going to add another percentage or 2%. And then the fees can become quite expensive. I personally don't like performance fees, so tax-free won't allow them. So you can't even put them in there. So it's really keeping it simple, choosing an ETF or unit trust based on what makes sense to you. But please invest it, don't save it, and please don't use it as a transactional account that you're going to use for your holidays. You're really robbing yourself unintentionally. It might just be because you don't know. No one told you, but now we have.
Now you've been warned.
Yeah.
And I think, for me, when you look at this, so in episode 1, we've covered retirement funds. Episode 2, we're covering tax-free. And you should look at those two together when you're looking at your overall portfolio.
Yes.
So this should be seen working hand in glove with your retirement fund. So if you are young and you've maxed your exposure to shares inside your retirement fund, and as Pieter mentioned, it's 75% in shares. You can add property companies to that, and you still want more growth assets. Then you would look at your tax-free and you'd say, okay, I'm going to allocate 100% of my tax-free to, let's say, local and global shares, because you can do that. I mean, nothing stops you saying, I'm going to choose a South African, general equity unit trust, or a South African ETF that invests in shares with half the money, and then half the money in a world index, again, via a unit trust or a general equity fund or a world index. It doesn't matter. But then you've maximized your exposure to shares inside the tax-free. Then look at the two together when you're just doing your own calculations to say, okay, with the value of my retirement funds and my tax-free, what's my exposure to shares? So the two can play a very nice role. Equally, much later in life, when you're far down the road and you decide, okay, my tax-free is now a very nice investment vehicle for me. It's worth 5 or 10 million rand, and I need an income from my investments. Nothing stops you at that stage of saying, okay, I want to switch the mix of my tax-free. I actually want to increase my exposure to government bonds, as an example. Now, normal generic government bonds in South Africa pay hugely attractive interest rates against inflation. So we might be in an environment, I don't know what it will be when we're all older, but let's say it's 3% inflation and you're earning 8% interest. That's a 5% real growth rate, interest rate of 5% more than what you're paying on inflation. So you get that paid to you on a monthly basis if that's what you decide to do. And then you say, well, okay, I'm going to earn most of the taxable interest. I'm actually going to not earn it in my own name. I'm going to put it in my tax-free. And then for growth, I'm going to focus on my own discretionary investments or my retirement funds, et cetera, et cetera. So you can be very flexible inside this for now. But I think for most people, because it's a 13 to 30 year investment, your bias should definitely be as much as possible into shares. The jury's out whether it should be 100% global shares and no local. I always think if you don't know the answer, go half. It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And then again, you've spoken about costs, so you keep those fees down as much as possible. Important. If you got suckered by a financial institution that put you into a tax-free and you realize, it's expensive or it's actually just going to be in cash all the time, the law forces the transfer of tax-frees. In other words, they can't say to you, no, you've kept your money with us, it has to stay here forever. You are allowed to transfer that tax-free from one place to another.
Yeah.
So if you're in an expensive place and you realize you made a mistake, don't cash it out. That's a mistake. Rather just do a transfer.
Yes.
And then consolidate and make sure that it's correctly invested going forward. So they are portable. And that wasn't the case right in the beginning. So if you did make a mistake in 2015 or whatever, and you thought that you couldn't do anything, probably was true in 2016. It's not true nowadays. So you can transfer, and then yes, focus on fees as well. But I think that there are two things that are important in our whole lives. And to me, one of the questions we get asked a lot will be, how much do I contribute to my retirement fund, and how much do I contribute? So I mean, I think there isn't a correct answer to this. There isn't one answer for everybody. Personally, I think if you're early in your career, and let's say, I mean, resources are always limited, but if you've got $6,000 a month to save, I mean, you might want to consider saying 3 into my tax-free, 3 into my retirement fund, and then as your salary goes up, you can't add more to your tax-free, but maybe you add to your retirement fund. And then you add to the thing we're going to cover next, which is discretionary saving.
Yes.
So you can blend these things. But for now, understand this is a gift. SARS gives us very few gifts. This is a great one. We should be using.
Yes. Very important, that point you made. If you transfer it to another provider, best way to go about it is contact the new provider that you want to transfer to. Say, hey, listen, I've got my tax-free with X provider. I want to transfer it to you guys. What do you need from me? There's paperwork that needs to be completed and a very specific process that needs to be followed. Otherwise, please don't cash it out and pay it into the new provider. You're going to get a massive tax penalty. And I've seen that happening as well. And you don't want to go and argue with SARS because you didn't know. Unfortunately, they don't accept that as an excuse. So transfer it to if you have to, but just follow the right process. And we've talked about lifetime contribution limits. So how do you know how much you've actually contributed? So maybe you started 4 years ago and you haven't kept track of everything. You're not sure where you are. Easy. You look at your last notice of assessment. So that's when you do your tax return. You get SARS sends you a report of how much you've earned, how much deductions you had, how much taxes you've paid. Scroll down all the way to the end. There's a section on tax-free investments. They'll say, okay, for this current year, you've contributed this amount, and up to this year, the lifetime contribution has to be this amount. So if you started in 2015 when it introduced, you're probably getting closer to that 500 now. So maybe just also a point to go and check how far are you, so that you don't hit that 500 and continue contributing, because then you're probably going to pay that 40% surprise.
It's something that's coming for people that were very good and diligent in the beginning. We need to make sure that we stay on top of this.
I think the first people will start hitting it in the next 2 or 3 years. So
amazing.
So I mean, that's a great problem to have. Just be cautious when you get there to check. But yeah, if you have a tax-free savings account, let us know how your experience have been. I know for sure I made a couple of mistakes when I started it. Maybe you are someone that has it with the bank, or you went somewhere and someone advised you. So maybe share your experience with us. We always love to hear about you, what you find valuable and what your questions are. It also helps us to understand what content we need to provide. And it helps for the YouTube algorithm. So, helps us to our videos to get to more people and hopefully help more South Africans take control of their finances. But this concludes our second episode of the 4-part series. So the next episode, we're going to talk about discretionary or endowments. Discretionary funds is fully taxable funds, and endowments are almost like a hybrid between the two. You have some tax benefits, but also less flexibility. So those are kind of the next step that we're going to cover. The first episode, we covered retirement funds. You can also go back to that if you haven't. And then the fourth episode, the last one, we're going to bring all of them together and tell you which one would be most applicable and do a couple of case studies.
And maybe a bit of arguing.
Yes, that's always healthy. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have a lucky week and see you next time.
Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.
The Stradivarius violin is considered to be the most emotive instrument in the world. That's why you'll often hear it in investment ads, adding drama and the utmost importance to their philosophies, or for the announcement of a fancy new fund manager. 10x investments don't need dramatic instruments to seem impressive. They let the results sing for themselves. So 10x your future without the drama. 10x is a licensed FSP.